The federal government has estimated that it can cost taxpayers up to $1 million to raise one child damaged at birth by illicit drugs consumed by its mother. What can be done about the problem? Well, 4 years ago, we did a story about the city of Charleston, South Carolina, which tried to solve it by threatening to prosecute pregnant drug abusers. The approach raised all sorts of complicated legal issues, some of which were resolved by the Supreme Court this past week. We'll tell you what happened, but first, another look at that story. Charleston, South Carolina, with its history, its elegant homes and southern charm, likes to consider itself far removed from the big city problems of New York, Miami, or Chicago. But don't tell that to Shirley Brown, a nurse and case manager for high-risk pregnancies at the Medical University of South Carolina Hospital, which serves Charleston's inner city. 6 years ago, she began noticing that 16 to 24 pregnant women every month were testing positive for crack cocaine, and the results were beginning to turn up in the maternity ward's intensive care unit. Nurse Brown says the privacy laws prevent her from telling us exactly which of these low birth weight babies had been affected by their mother's drug abuse, but she said all of them display disabilities consistent with the effects produced by crack.
How much does it weigh?
15 ounces.
What are the chances for that baby?
This baby's got a long, hard road ahead of it. The baby's this small. Chances of survival are real slim. It will be one of the miracles if it survives.
It is Shirley Brown's job to warn pregnant women about the dangers of drugs, to tell mothers that their babies have died, and to accompany the tiny bodies to the morgue. But aside from the heartbreak, there are staggering financial costs.
We've had hospital bills range to way over $700,000. We had
one woman, Nurse Brown says, had 2 crack babies in the same year, costing taxpayers just under $1 million. Both children are now in foster care.
These bleeps that keep going off, what do they mean?
Well, that's heart monitors or respiratory monitors. We try not to touch these babies any more than we have to. We cover the isolettes with blankets to avoid a lot of stimulation. These babies do not need a lot of extra activity and a lot of extra lights, a lot of extra noise.
Okay, let's just shut the lights off and move over.
Yes. I've seen babies die. I've seen babies born premature. I've seen babies that are blind and deaf. I've seen babies at 18 months old still couldn't talk. I've seen children live till 2 years of age and die.
Because of cocaine?
There's no other reason.
Brown and other members of the neonatal staff thought something had to be done. For a year, they tried encouraging and cajoling pregnant women into free drug programs. But out of the 119 who tested positive, not one went into treatment. So they went to the Medical University president, Dr. James Edwards, for help. And Edwards, who was Ronald Reagan's Secretary of Energy, was willing to try a radical idea: make them go into treatment.
If you walked upon a woman that was beating her little toddler with a stick, is it illegal to grab that stick and say, "Don't you do that anymore? I'm going to call the police"?
That's what you're doing?
That's exactly what we're doing.
With Edwards' blessing, Nurse Brown and the obstetric staff began working with the police and the social service agencies and the local prosecutor, Charlie Condon, to come up with a strategy.
If you think about it, the possession of crack cocaine is a very serious felony in this state. You have the element of innocent children being hurt very severely by the crack cocaine, which could be the crime of murder. And on top of that, there is a statute in this state that requires medical professionals to report child abuse. So I think they were really on firm legal grounds in terms of contacting us.
Condon, the university, the police, and the social service agencies came up with a plan.
And this is how it worked. Every woman who checked into the hospital was required to sign a standard consent form giving her permission to be tested for drugs. Anyone who tested positive was taken aside, shown a film on the dangers of drug abuse during pregnancy, and asked to enroll in a drug treatment program. If she refused or she failed to show up for treatment, the police were notified. And if she continued to use drugs during her pregnancy, she could be arrested.
It worked like a charm. That's the proof in the pudding here.
At least that's what Condon says. And he cites a hospital study showing that within a year of the program's inception, the number of pregnant drug abusers at MUSC dropped from 24 a month to just 5 or 6 a month. And then, Lynn Paltrow came to town.
I'm saying it's illegal, it's unconstitutional, it doesn't help the women, and it doesn't help the children.
Lynn Paltrow is a feminist lawyer with the Center for Reproductive Law and Policy in New York City, an offshoot of the American Civil Liberties Union. She's suing the city of Charleston, the hospital, the prosecutor, the police chief, and Nurse Brown on the grounds that the policy is unconstitutional. And she says you can't arrest someone based on the results of a drug test.
Every court has said you can't use the law this way. These laws, the child abuse laws, the drug distribution laws, the possession laws, are not intended as a tool for nurses in hospitals to coerce women into inappropriate treatment or jail them because they happen to be angry at them.
Paltrow is suing on behalf of 6 former patients, 5 of whom were arrested and spent time in jail. She says the drug tests they received at the hospital constituted unreasonable search and seizure.
Most of you signed a consent form acknowledging or giving them permission to test you for drugs.
We didn't have a choice. There was nowhere else to be seen in Charleston.
I thought it was just the, regular hospital consent form.
That's what I thought it was too.
But does that give them the right to give it to the police if we sign to be tested? We know that we need help. Does it still give them the right to give it to the police to say they're going to be locked up? We're sick. We're not bad because we have a sickness. It's an illness.
And Paltrow says it's no coincidence that 5 of the 6 clients are black. She says the policy targets black women since the only hospital that enforces it serves the black community.
In the city of Charleston and the state of South Carolina, you can't, as a publicly elected official, choose to enforce your interpretation of law in only one place and have that place just happen to be the place that serves a predominantly African American population.
But the prosecutor and the hospital staff say that MUSC is the only medical center in that part of the state that handles high-risk pregnancies. And Charleston's police chief, Reuben Greenberg, whose department made the arrests, is one of the policy's most enthusiastic supporters.
This isn't a racist policy.
No, no question about it. As a black person myself, every black kid that is rescued from cocaine and heroin addiction during their fetal developmental process, I'm happy to see that as a black person.
But the United States Department of Health and Human Services wasn't. After Lynn Paltrow filed her lawsuit, the department's Office of Civil Rights began investigating the Charleston policy, placing at risk more than $330 million in federal aid to the medical school and to the hospital, 60% of its annual budget. And if that federal funding were withdrawn, the Medical University of South Carolina would have no alternative but to close its doors.
Have you been in the neonatal unit here in Charleston?
I haven't been in it here, no.
It's a pretty sad place.
It's been a sad place for a long time before there was crack addiction, and it'll be a sad place for a long time after crack addiction.
Paltrow says the medical literature doesn't support the notion that crack is any more dangerous than dozens of other factors that can jeopardize a pregnancy.
Smoking, drinking, a woman with certain kinds of conditions, if she gets out of bed, could jeopardize the life or health of her future child. Too much exercise, too little exercise, changing cat litter. So if what you're saying is the state has an interest in policing pregnancies and turning pregnant women into criminal suspects from the moment that they conceive, then you're saying that we're ready to accept a police state for pregnant women.
These are pregnant women who use crack cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
That's not any kind of a mitigating circumstance?
Look, if you have there are women out there, you keep trying to make this about crack, and that's certainly what the policy is.
It is about crack.
Right.
Crack is an illegal substance.
Yes, and it's an illegal substance, that's absolutely true.
It's a felony to possess it or to use it.
Fine, and if you catch a pregnant woman with a bag of cocaine in your hand, they're absolutely free to arrest that woman. But when a woman goes to a hospital to get help that could help her and her future child, you don't have her arrested for a non-existent crime to prove that you have some great new policy that's going to get you on TV.
The plain fact of the matter is, which cannot be changed, is that the possession of crack cocaine is a felony in South Carolina, that the district attorney or the circuit solicitor has jurisdiction, and if I want to, as the circuit solicitor, I can arrest you for it, and that was the idea here. You will be arrested for this. Something will happen to you unless what? A very radical idea. Stop it. And that was the program.
That's all they have to do.
Stop it.
Condon calls the policy a treatment-oriented amnesty program. If at any time during the process, even after her arrest, the woman agreed to treatment, all of her legal problems went away. And he says of 44 women arrested under the program, only 2 were prosecuted. Everyone else went into treatment.
To get into jail under this program, you really have to break in. You've got to literally say, I want to go to jail under all circumstances. I want to keep using this crack cocaine. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to continue with the crack cocaine usage.
But Paltrow can cite stacks of studies and statements saying that you can't force people into drug treatment. It doesn't work. And she has some support on that point. The American Medical Association and the American Nurses Association agree that coercion simply scares patients away from prenatal care.
What every expert in substance abuse treatment says for pregnant women is, if you want women to come in for prenatal care and drug treatment, you're going to have to make sure that there's someplace that they feel safe leaving their children and that there's accessible transportation.
In addition, she says Charleston's treatment program is inappropriate because it isn't specifically designed for pregnant women.
They get the free health care for the child, which costs taxpayers in excess of $50,000 per baby. And Lynn Paltrow, coming down from New York City, wants to tell us in South Carolina, oh, and by the way, on top of that, make sure you give them free transportation to the drug treatment center, and make sure you provide a setting where, heaven forbid, it's designed simply for females. And by the way, while I'm thinking about this, why not have babysitters come into the home for the other children? You pay for it, you pay for it, you pay for it. It's all right, it's all right, all right.
The state's position is the only thing it's trying to do is to have these women stop using crack cocaine, a dangerous drug, the possession of which is a felony, while they're pregnant, endangering the welfare of their child. That doesn't seem to be asking a lot. It doesn't seem to be particularly coercive.
That's not, hospitals are not supposed to be way stations on the way to jail. They're not supposed to be detention centers. Doctors and nurses are not supposed to act like police officers.
It worked, and it does work. And I think that's what irritates American Civil Liberties Union. It works like a charm. And if they can't stop this program, heaven forbid, it might spread throughout the rest of the country.
It was the Medical University of South Carolina that blinked first. Faced with the loss of federal funds and the prospect of having to close its doors, it threw in the towel. However, this week, Charlie Condon won a significant victory over his old adversary, Lynn Paltrow. The U.S. Supreme Court let stand a South Carolina ruling that extends child endangerment laws to include viable fetuses, which means that Condon, who is now the Attorney General of South Carolina, can prosecute mothers who give birth to crack babies. Lynn Paltrow says it's a terrible decision for women and children, and she started a letter-writing campaign to try and pressure us into not rebroadcasting this story.